Thank you for staying with us. The Economic Community of West African States has lifted the 4-month ban it placed on Burkina Faso, Guinea and Mali in response to military coups and pressure to restore civil rule. This was decided in a meeting titled the Extraordinary Session of the Heads of States and Government of ECOWAS members, where the Commission's chairman, Omar Touré, made the announcement. Recall that Niger, Mali and Burkina Faso declared their intentions to permanently withdraw from the bloc. The ECOWAS Commission chairman says the lifting of the ban brings a new push for dialogue to address the political crisis in the region to ease the suffering of the people, which is based purely on humanitarian grounds, and also the immediate lifting of border and aircraft bans. Joining us via Zoom from Senegal is the security expert and regional coordinator for Central Africa at the Institute for Security Studies in Dakar, Oluwole Ojewale. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, talk to us about your interpretation of this move by ECOWAS. There's been divergent reaction. There are those who said that there was no form of engagement with the military hunters before this decision was made by ECOWAS. And so this paints ECOWAS in a certain light that a lot of persons are not happy with.
Well, thank you so much. I'm not sure what those people who are probably having against the development, what they know, but I will speak from the informed perspective of what I also know about what has transpired. Right. And we need to know that not everything that happens within this context of conflict between ECOWAS and those military or juntas are going to make it to the pages of the newspapers or TV or radio. A lot of troubleshooting is going behind the scenes. They were talking to each other. At this level, it's not head of state to head of state. It is at the level of maybe the foreign affairs ministries in those countries, the foreign affairs ministry of the counterpart countries, being coordinated by ECOWAS and other international development partners. So I think this is a welcome development because we have had it for it, we have recommended it. Democracy essentially is about the people. And the people that are felt the bite of the sanction are actually the poor farmers, the people who work in the informal economy, the poor people generally who could not access medicine, who could not sell their tomatoes, who could not even sell their livestock product and everything. This is the reality of the people in all those countries, particularly the last one, which is Niger. And it's also something that a lot of people are glad about in those countries in terms of how they have appealed to ECOWAS to relax the sanction. So I don't see the need for why people should not be happy. I don't see the reason why people should probably take ECOWAS to begin to criticize ECOWAS for this extraordinary decision. It is high time, and I think I'm very happy that it has happened now. It's going to relax the plight that people are going through. It is because we don't really feel the import of what those people have been going through. It has been hell on earth for the poor people in those countries.
Perhaps the reason why others are against this lifting of sanctions is because it's based on principle. For instance, the former presidential aide, Obono Obla, a lawyer and social activist, said that the lifting of the sanctions, he says, and I quote, lifting of the sanctions and suspension is bad for the principle of international law as enshrined in the ECOWAS Treaty and Protocol 1991, which state that military takeover or unconstitutional takeover of democratically elected civilians in the West African sub-region would not be accepted, unconstitutional, illegal, and null and void. Do you want to see reasons why someone like him is on the other side?
Well, I'm not going to see reasons why he's standing on the other side, and people who hold that view with profound respect for them. We're talking about people who have been subjected to economic hardship. And what is when people think like this, are we saying the only tool at the disposal of ECOWAS is sanction? Isn't democracy about the people? Isn't democracy about negotiation? Isn't democracy about the welfare of the people? I've interacted with people from Mali. I've interacted with people from Niger. I sat in conferences with them. People cannot even afford or access something as basic as medicine. It is out of reach for many people. Don't forget that these are landlocked nations. And the countries are also weighed down under heavy burden of insecurity in the recent So why should we say the decision that ECOWAS has taken is not good for the people? It is good for the people. It is good for those countries. At some point, you need to move on. Who has happened in those countries? Those guys have consolidated power. We need to now begin to look for how we are going to expedite democratic transition. And he's the burden of the people. I think that is what
perhaps the argument, if I may cut in there, is that the signal is sending to military adventurers, according to the same Obono Obla, is that it's sending a positive signal to military adventurers. Don't you think that this might be some sort of a reason one should think about?
It would be good to also know the other alternative that those people who are standing on that part of the argument are also advancing to find solution to this. See, let me tell you something. Those people, they are not the people that you can scare with a barrel of gun. A soldier is not someone you are going to scare with purported military intervention, whether in Niger or in Mali. They have continued to grind on, irrespective of the sanction that is placed on them. And the implication is that you need to now seek for rapprochement and seek alternative means in finding solution to the impasse in those countries. And I think, and I stand by this ECOWAS decision, particularly for the plight of the people. The fear about, okay, maybe for future military incursion into politics and all those things, I believe ECOWAS is learning their lesson and they are learning it fast. And as they are talking to those the countries under military government, they are also looking for alternative ways to foolproof the democracies in these countries. Those are the options that are on the table. But I think the reason why people are hungry is because they feel like ECOWAS backtracked, ECOWAS promised, ECOWAS vowed that they were going to carry out military invasion. They didn't do that. Sanctions, they have also relaxed. It is just the way of doing things in international relations. There are different tools that are available on the table. There was the tool of the military option. There was the tool of sanction. And if you find out that they are not producing the intended result, the longer these things stay, the longer the democratic transition is also going to stay in those countries. And you turn those countries to pariah nations, and then you look at the gross insecurity that is going on in the region now. And we in the littoral state of Ghana, Nigeria, Ivory Coast, we begin to see these things percolating into our countries because we are not, there's no cooperation has broken down between those countries and these other countries. So I think this is the best decision, and I stand by the decision of ECOWAS. It is in the interest of the people in those countries, not necessarily military guys that are not affected directly by the sanctions.
But then all of this, in all of this, how do you see this affecting the political dynamics, within Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, vis-a-vis other affected countries, and what potential risk do you think, opportunities may arise as a result of this?
So this negotiation is all about give and take. I believe ECOWAS didn't just arrive at this decision without also extracting some concessions from those people. That is what people should keep at the back of their mind, even though probably those things are not featured into the pages of the newspaper. You also saw the role that General Yakubu Gowon played in this when he visited the president and things that we have had after that. So there's a lot of engagement that has taken place. And the opportunities that I see here is that it is now left to those military administrations in those countries now to shift ground and begin to also move in the direction of ECOWAS, the give and takes, the negotiation, how are they going to expedite the democratic transitions in those countries? Those are the ultimate things that will begin to happen now. And all those structures that they have put in place, the defense charter of Liptako Goma, the alliance of Sahel State, they put those structure in place to also show that we can also frustrate and fracture ECOWAS. And now I believe they will begin to seek alternative and how they are actually going to come back and probably integrate all those systems into the ECOWAS system. Those are the opportunities that are there now. But you ask in terms of risk, if we don't do this, Nigeria shares the boundary of about the borderline of about 1,600 kilometers with Niger. If Niger pulls out of the multinational joint task force, which I believe they have actually pulled out anyway, and then all the other security partnerships that are supposed to be existing among these countries, we are going to feel the bite as banditry, arms trafficking, terrorist groups, and violent extremist groups begin to percolate into these countries because of the cooperation that has broken down. Those are the critical risks that are there. I understand the fear of the people that, okay, maybe this can be an encouragement to other coup or military adventurers, like you said, but when we get there, I believe ECOWAS is also thinking about that, and they are going to take care of that. But what is important now is that we need to bring back these countries into the fold. We need to ameliorate the plight of the people who are affected by the sanctions. And I think ECOWAS has made the best decision in the interest of those countries, the people there, and the entire region.
Right. Now, recall that some of the decisions taken by this military junta, there are those who have said it is a matter of the voice of Jacob and the hands of Esau. How should ECOWAS handle those interests that have been pushing these military juntas to taking some of the decisions that they have taken over time?
They were forced to make those decisions. And don't forget that we cannot take the sovereign right, the sovereign power of nations from them, despite the fact that they exist and relate with external bodies and institutions like ECOWAS and multilateral agencies. They have the sole responsibility to make their decisions. And whether it is the invitation of Wagner into those countries, I mean, those soldiers need to, they need to be preoccupied with regime protection. And I think that is what they've been doing, not really serving the interest of the people. So those things are there, and we cannot fault the decisions that they have made, at least because the basic ingredient of life is survival. They need to survive. The regime needs to survive. But let me also say that if you read the statement that they have made, they also face the pain of the fact that those sanctions that ECOWAS placed on them affected economic productivity and activities in those countries. They could not access the sea. And then these are some of the things that impose limitation on the quality of lives of the people in those countries who are affected by sanctions. So now that this has happened, those decisions that they've made, they need to begin to rethink it. And I believe strongly that some of those strategic decisions that they made was actually to spite ECOWAS. And ECOWAS also felt the pinch, particularly when they went for the jubilee, I call it for the exit of ECOWAS. That is I think is the straw that broke the camel's back. Possibly ECOWAS didn't anticipate that was going to happen. And they begin to form some very funny alliances that are also probably going to be detrimental to the entire region. So I think those things have now come to the fore. And the important thing now is that they need to begin to rethink retrace their step. But let me tell you, much more than all those things that they put in place, they need ECOWAS. And they have not eaten that fact from the public. And now that ECOWAS has taken this step, it is now left to them to also step back, reflect, and then embrace this peaceful dialogue that ECOWAS has extended to them, at least for the interest of the entire region. This is
sort of confusing, because it now looks like it is ECOWAS that is now kowtowing to these, three countries that had actually gone the way of military. Because ECOWAS, one of the reasons ECOWAS said was that the reason why they lifted the sanction, talked about job security of the 130 ECOWAS member staff who are citizens of the three countries. Seven staff members are from Burkina Faso, 23 from Mali, and 32 are from Niger. Now, the three countries, they have their own alliance of Sahel countries or states, or what you may call it. But then they also have, staff too that would, be seen to that effect. So if they are going to have to scrap what they have established, who will then not be losing his or her jobs? Because this looks more like a catch-22 for both. How do we put it? For both entities.
I think some of those structures that they put in place are just temporary structures to spite ECOWAS. I won't take it so much serious. Apart from maybe the alliance of the Sahel countries for defense and security pact. And I think that is actually to signal to ECOWAS that an attack on one of those countries would be an attack on all. So they capture it to reflect some sort of defense mechanism. But I think it can be repurposed to actually combat insurgency in the region. And that would be a good and welcome development. See, those alliances that you talk about, they are allowed. Don't forget that within the ECOWAS context, 15 countries of ECOWAS, we also have what they call the Mano River Union, comprising Sierra Leone, Liberia, I think Ivory Coast, and a few countries. And don't also forget that even within the ECOWAS region, we have countries that are affiliated to Commonwealth. They have Commonwealth responsibility. There's also those who have Francophone responsibility to France. So those things exist in some forms, and this cannot just be maybe a new layer that is going to be proposed and made useful for the three Sahel states. as they deem fit. But the one that is enduring is ECOWAS, and it's superimposed on all these structure that I've mentioned. And like I said, they need ECOWAS. Look at the market access between Nigeria and Niger. Look at the market for Mali, Burkina Faso. They assess their import from these countries, and it impacts on economic activities in those countries. So I think those are the key issues. The structure that they put in place, it is left to them to see how they are going to manage it. But the one that is very, very important is ECOWAS. And I believe they need ECOWAS, much as ECOWAS needed. And that is where I believe troubleshooting is going on behind the scene now between ECOWAS and those countries. And I'm deeply persuaded that they are going to come back very soon.
Now, the president of the commission is to invite Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, and even Guinea to attend the technical and consultation meetings of ECOWAS, as well as security-related meetings. This is some of the resolutions reached. I wonder what you see as what will be the conversation within this meetings when they eventually agree to return back, and if the invitation comes, do you see them returning? Because you are positive they would. How do you see this moving, perhaps ECOWAS forward, and what are the lessons they have learned?
Yes, it shows that the work has started already, and the lessons that have been learned is that you can't, some of those ultra rhetorics and military invasion and all those things that greeted the scene in the wake of the coup in Niger is not the way to go. You need to strengthen democracy in those countries. You need to support this country. And look, the military guys, they know that they are running on borrowed time. So they know that they are not going to be there forever. And they need to consolidate and do whatever they want to do as quick as possible. And they've not achieved any results that is tangible in those countries. Look at the attack that happened in Burkina Faso yesterday about 2 days ago, on mosques, on churches, and all those places. They are only preoccupied with regime protection. So the work has started. Now, ECOWAS has already made the move, and I believe it is in the interest of those countries to also honor the move that ECOWAS has made. At some point, you need to move on. So, and in strategy, in international relations, it's all about national and collective interest. So they will begin to weigh those options that they have, and then see what they stand to benefit in the sense of being part of this union. And don't forget that even though they pull out, ECOWAS has not sacked their staff that are within the ECOWAS. Relationship is still going on. So I believe to a large extent, ECOWAS is taking the lead this time around. They follow the path of peaceful resolution to conflict, and I believe it's going to drive us in on a positive note to achieving their reintegration, maybe as soon as possible. Don't let me put time like why I believe it's going to be very, very short.
I'm wondering what role you want the external actors to play in this regard, especially talking about the African Union and the United Nations, how they can, help come into some of these issues so as to help Africa, West African region, in preventing, future coup or the aftermath of the, coup experience the West African region has had.
Well, I think the role that they need to play in this essentially is to also help to lend their voice to persuade these people to come back into the fold. You mentioned the United Nations, you mentioned ECOWAS. I believe they are going to play a very strategic role. The one that you probably left out, which I think is very, very significant, is the United States of America, that has a serious leverage across these countries and strategic interest in the region. So I believe they are also going to lend their voice of persuasion behind the scene to bring them back to the fold. And then how do we prevent future coup? That's a very big question. The real issue is to ensure that the people own the democracy. And the honeymoon of full experience is just within 24 hours. It is the same people that were jumping and hoisting the flag of Russia that are now complaining that they could not access medicine, they could not access basic means of livelihood and survival in those countries. So it has already, their eyes are open now. So they need to own their democracy. We need to ensure that it's inclusive, it is fair, and it is transparent, and it's delivering governance. So to the extent that those things are happening, I believe these things are going to be waved behind us. And I also need to add that in every region, there's definitely going to be an hegemon that is going to wield the strongest power. And in this regard, I believe countries like Nigeria, Ghana, Senegal, Ivory Coast need to be well behaved. I say that with a strong sense of responsibility. if we become poster child of them, poster children of democracy, so to speak, in terms of delivering good governance, then it's become easier for some of these countries that are probably transitioning and struggling to look up to us and wanting to model their countries after what is obtainable in this country. So it is very, very important that big boys in the neighborhood should also be well behaved in terms of actually delivering on economic prosperity for their people. This is going to have neighborhood effect in the region. I think this is a path to go to consolidate democracy.
Absolutely, because my next question was going to be how governments now can begin to move forward with the matters of democracy such that countries across ECOWAS can begin to feel the impact of the dividends of democracy. We see a majority of countries going through a difficult and challenging time as it is. As we look at the lessons that have been drawn from these issues, how do we move forward with our democracy? Is it high time for ECOWAS to begin to look into the eyes of all of the leaders present in the Commission to tell them, you know what, you must begin to take dividends of democracy seriously?
Well, unfortunately, those people who are the helm of affairs of ECOWAS, they handle it like a trade union in the sense that they can't really talk to each other. That is the reason why you see what has happened in Senegal in the recent time. ECOWAS could not come up boldly to condemn what is going on. They just kept saying the election should hold, to respect the right of the people and all those things. It is an unfortunate incident, really, and this is what it has been in the region. So rather than fixing culpability at that level, I would rather say people need to rise up, and that is what you saw in Senegal. People rose up to the extent that the fellow had to give up his purported third-term ambition, then changing the date of election. He had to backtrack again to say, okay, I'm going to leave on April 2nd because the people have risen, the voices of the people are louder. This is what we need to see in those countries. And it's not just about carrying placard, it's about participating in democracy, owning democracy, the entire civil society, media, the youth, trade union. They need to rise up and hold democracy and participate in the democratic process. By these, I don't mean just voting, being part of political party, contributing significantly to nation building by participating in that process, owning it. I think that is the way to go. It is not about saying, of course, I know the head of state have a responsibility, but they have probably 4, 5, 6, 10 years to spend in the saddle. It's the people that must own democracy. And like what is happening when you talk about economic realities that are biting the people, I think it's a global affairs now based on the disruptions that are going on globally. But at the individual levels, nations are affected differently, perhaps because of the faulty decisions of their policymakers. So I think these things are collective, they speak to collective responsibility of the people to ensure that they continue to put pressure on their governments to actually deliver good governance. So if we do this, I think within the space of a few years, things are going to get normal. And let me also say that the fact that there are economic challenges or different challenges going on, it shouldn't be a recipe for unconstitutional change of government anywhere. The best form of democracy is still the worst form of democracy is still worse than any form of authoritarian regime that you can imagine. Because what separates democracy from other forms of government like autocracy and authoritarianism are civil liberty. Is beyond putting food on the table. The right to freedom, the right of expression must be guaranteed, and those are the software that actually run democracy, not necessarily what people are fixated upon. As good as they are, I know that they are very, very important. But in Nigeria and elsewhere, military government also built hospitals, they built roads and all those things, but they killed the people, they took the voice of people away from them. That is not what we want in the region. I think this is what we need to put on the front burner.
Right. That's a fine place to leave the conversation. So much has been said already. We must thank you, Security Expert and Regional Coordinator for Central Africa at the Institute for Security Studies in Dakar, Oluwole Ojewale. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me again.
Right. Well, this is where we draw the curtains on the program for today. Let's tell you